How much should you and your student be worrying about the SAT and ACT? So the answer to that, like almost everything in our field, is it super duper depends. For the majority of my students, I would say that they're applying with their test scores to some of their schools and they're applying test optional to the rest of the schools on their list. However, I do work with students every year who will choose to submit their test scores everywhere they apply. And conversely, I will work with students every year who choose to submit their test scores to none of the schools they apply to. These are all normal. It's really going to depend on your kid and their college list. So we are seeing, this is in 2026, going into spring. We are still seeing some colleges going back to test required after the post-COVID era. During COVID, a lot of colleges that were not historically test optional chose to move to test optional in order to be more accessible to students who could not take the test for whatever reason. In 2026, we have seen more colleges move away from being test optional and become test required, or more confusingly, test preferred in this post-COVID era. Most recently, University of Alabama has moved to test required. But if your student's list is heavy on the SEC sort of conference, Southeast, South, they are more likely to see schools that require test scores. Florida public universities, University of Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, University of Texas, Louisiana, like Georgia, these are states where we are seeing them requiring test scores. For students who are looking at the most selective colleges in the country, we are also seeing those schools moving back into test required. So a lot of the Ivy League, the Ivy-like schools like Georgetown, these are schools that are requiring test scores again. So for most of my students, my advice is still take the test. It can be a door opener. If you do well enough on the test, and well just is relative to your student's list, but if you do well enough on the test, you can submit it. It might help. It can help with things like scholarship and honors applications. But my only students who are really impacted negatively by their test scores are going to be students who are looking at the South and Southeast and are looking at the tippy top most selective colleges and are not within the mid-range for those schools. So right now, we're not entirely sure who is going to remain test optional and who won't. We can kind of guess that any school that was test optional before COVID is going to remain that way. But for the schools in the South and Southeast and the schools that are the most selective in the country, we can kind of see that they are moving back to test required. If you need help with your own students' test strategy for the SAT and ACT, please reach out to us. We are always happy to help with that. But just remember that your student, you're not defined by these test scores, but it is a piece of the puzzle and increasingly something that many students need to pay more attention to.